Join me by the candlelight. The Labyrinth of Asterion, written by Bonnie Bailey, narrated by Tales to Chill. Xander had gotten his degree in archaeology, and his dream job awaited him on the Isle of Crete at the Heraclean Archaeological Museum. He had always been fascinated with Greek mythology, so to get to live in Crete, the location of Mount Ida and the Aegean Cave, the birthplace of Zeus, was a dream come true. Two of his cousins were planning to come to Greece for a vacation, and they planned a hiking trip to Mount Ida. The time had come for Xander's vacation, and he eagerly awaited the arrival of his cousins, Stephen and Aston. The two brothers were also fans of Greek mythology, so both were very excited for this adventure. They had all gathered their supplies and started the trek up Mount Ida. The Aegean Cave is on the east side of Mount Ida. They stopped in the village of Enogia to restock their supplies and rest for the trip to the Aegean Cave. They had finally reached their destination. Upon entering the cave, they found themselves in the main chamber, which is 40 meters long and 50 meters wide. While in the main chamber, there was a great rumble, and part of the chamber collapsed. The collapse created an opening to a new chamber, and they were amazed at what they saw. The walls were filled with images of the Greek gods. It seemed they had walked for hours. They had gotten so wrapped up in the images they had lost track of time, and when they tried to go back the way they came, they had gotten completely turned around again. Unbeknownst to the trio, they had wandered down another chamber. On those walls was the story of Pasiphae, the mother of the first Minotaur, Asterion. In history, the Minotaur had supposedly been killed by Theseus, but these images told a different story. According to the images, Pasiphae had hidden her son and continued to give him human offerings. They came upon a split in the chamber. "Which way now, Xander? You are the expert," said Stephen. Xander, with a puzzled look, replied, "I have no idea. Your guess is as good as mine." Both chambers seemed to descend from the chamber they were in. They decided to go right, as the images seemed to continue in that chamber. They walked for what seemed like hours. Then suddenly, they saw a light ahead. "This must be the way out," said Aston. They picked up their pace, thinking they had found a way out of the cave. What they entered was not the way out. It was the entrance to a great labyrinth. It was the labyrinth built by Daedalus and his son Icarus to house the beast. The labyrinth was also the place Pasiphae had hidden her son Asterion, the Minotaur. When they turned to go back, the entrance to the labyrinth was gone. In its place was a wall way too high to climb. They had no choice but to go forward. There were so many twists and turns, it didn't take long for them to completely lose their bearings. Without knowing, they were going deeper and deeper into the bowels of the labyrinth. They started to see the bones. These are human bones. How did they even get here?" Stephen asked. "I don't know, but I suggest we keep moving," said Xander. The farther they went, the fresher the bones seemed to be. "Stay close together. The last thing we want is to get separated," said Xander. "You don't have to tell me twice," said Aston. They began to notice a strange odor. The farther they went, the stranger it got. "What the hell is that smell?" asked Stephen. It started to get overpowering, and the trio started to get dizzy. Without knowing it, they had gotten separated into two different sections of the labyrinth. Xander turned to expect to see his cousins close behind him, but what he saw was definitely not his cousins. "My eyes must be playing tricks on me. That smell must have been some kind of gas and I'm hallucinating," he thought to himself. What stood before him was a great beast. It was at least 7 foot tall, with the head of a bull and the body of a man. In the place of feet were sharp hooves. The beast came closer, and the horrible smell came with it. All of a sudden, the beast spoke.
I'm so happy you entered into my labyrinth. I was getting hungry.
The beast charged at Xander with the speed of lightning. He didn't even have time to run when the beast gored him with its horns and started devouring its meal. Stephen and Aston were looking for a way back, hoping to find Xander, when they heard a blood-curdling scream. They began to run towards what they thought was another chamber of the labyrinth. They saw Xander's backpack, completely covered in blood, but there was no sign of their cousin. The next sound they heard was a snorting sound, and they heard the clumping sound of hooves. There was a strange mist that seemed to envelop the two. Again, the smell came back, but this time was also a coppery smell along with it. It was blood. It was Xander's blood. They saw something emerging from the mist. They couldn't believe their eyes. There, before them, stood the Minotaur.
Your friend was a tasty appetizer, but now I found the main course,
said the beast. He made a lightning charge at the pair. Stephen was the first to go. He had pushed his younger brother out of the path of the charging beast. The beast opened its mouth and seemed to almost devour Stephen with one bite. Aston stood watching in horror, while his brother was eaten alive by the Minotaur. He had nowhere to run, and knew he was next. The beast turned towards Aston, with Stephen's blood dripping from its razor-sharp teeth.
Don't think you stand a chance of escape. When you came to my labyrinth, you served yourselves up as a small meal,
said the beast. He didn't charge this time. He came slowly at Aston.
Your fear makes you a tastier morsel. Go ahead, run. I love a good chase,
said the beast. Aston broke in a run for his life. Then he remembered the wall that had appeared at the entrance of the labyrinth. He knew in his heart there would be no escape. He ran down chamber after chamber, not knowing he was only going in circles. After a while, he couldn't run anymore. He had to stop to catch his breath. Just then, the mist appeared again. The Minotaur slowly emerged.
No more running, no more chase,
said the beast. He came at Aston and reared up and caught him with his two front hooves. He trampled Aston within an inch of his life, and then decided it was time. He had tenderized his meal enough. He devoured the young man, slowly, enjoying him to the last bite. A search party was called in when Xander didn't return to work the following week. He had left his itinerary with his boss, so they knew where he was headed, and that was Mount Ida and the Idian Cave. When they arrived, there was no sign of the trio. There was also no sign of a cave-in. Xander and his cousins seemed to have simply disappeared.